Every 8 years.
Yeah.
Colleen, that I was coming, she said, well, you better be there.
Oh, I love Colleen. She's amazing. She's one of my babies.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna step out here and drop this. Well, good to see you. Oh, hi.
And I help to be careful.
Oh no, look out. Danger.
I love the rudder beats.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Keep humming.
Yeah. Here, probably. Yes. Yeah, I'll put this over a little bit anyway. Thank you.
Remember the 15 magic erasers of shit?
Are we on? I think we are.
That's right there. That could use a new. Whoever decided all the white laminate was necessary in this building, they're on my list. Yeah, that would be better. It wouldn't be quite as bright and shiny though. Yeah, I don't like that either. See all the black marks? I mean, if you look close, it's pretty.
I think so.
You got a little carried
Can
away.
you check to see? Can you check to see if that's on? Yeah. I don't want to bend this too much. Is that okay? Good. People have been trying to turn me down forever.
Testing, testing.
Oh, I don't even know what color it is.
So you're not amplified. You're
I'm
just
not
over the
amplified.
internet.
I'm
All of our friends online can hear you.
very, very well. Very, very well. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. Bobbi Jo, thank you for being here. It's so great to have you here and see you again. And thanks to all the people online. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be looking, but you're out there somewhere. Oh, there you are. I see you now. Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to hear the story about Bobbi Jo Reed and Healing House. Healing House is a ministry to bring addicts off the street. And it's really a story of God's leading, God's getting Bobbi Jo away from her life, because she was an addict on the streets, getting her out of that life, and then starting Healing House, and really having the faith to do that. It's an amazing story, so having the faith to do that. And it was started in 2002, 20 years ago, and now more than 6,000 people have been through their programs. You need to go down there and get a tour, because you can't believe it until you see it. They have, well, you'll find out, many houses and many apartments. So, Bobbi Jo, thank you again. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And without further ado,
Awesome.
Bobbi Jo Reed.
Thank you. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for coming. And do we have people out there? Oh, hi everybody. Okay, well thanks for showing up in the rain, guys. I know it was hard. I was doing housing inspections all day and I've been out in the rain. I'm like, ooh, I just want to cuddle up. So thank you for coming out. As you were told, my name's Bobbi Jo Reed, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. In September, I'll have 27 years of recovery, by God's grace. And can you hear? Sounds like it's fading. Okay, so I'll just give you a little bit of my background. I am 60 years old. I was raised in Kansas City, Kansas. My dad was a Casey, Kansas police department. When I was coming up, I was a chubby kid. I had a speech impediment because my older brother did, and I emulated him. So that sure didn't help with low self-esteem issues, right? And we find that that's a common thing with people that turn to alcohol and drugs, is because we don't feel comfortable inside our own skin. And so we're trying to change the way we feel about everything. So my dad was a fella, he always worked 2 jobs, and that's what you did. You supported yourself, you worked 2 jobs, you made sure your family didn't go hungry. And so I started working, I don't know if any of you remember, but there used to be a store called Save On over in Kansas. And there was a blue law in Kansas City, Missouri, and you couldn't buy stuff on Sundays. So you'd have to go over to Kansas. So it was a department store, many different departments. So at 12 years old, I started working there full time. I'd work every day after school and then 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday. So I was working a full-time job because that's what we did in our family. Both my brothers worked there, my dad worked there, and my mom ended up working there. So at 12, I found myself around a lot of older kids. And you got to remember, I didn't feel comfortable inside my own skin, right? So now I started hanging out with 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And so I'm just telling my folks, I'm spending the weekend at Nancy's house. Her mom was never around. It was a party. The first time I drank, I was 12 years old, and I remember thinking, man, I'm good. This is awesome. First time I really felt comfortable inside my own skin is when I took that drink. First time I drank, I got drunk, and I could not wait to do it again. I mean, it was on. I fell in love the moment I did it because I felt better. And I'm 12 years old hanging out with these older people. Of course, you know, when you put a little juice in you, you think you're a better dancer, cuter than what you really are, and, you know, a comedian. And so I thought it really made me fit in with these older people. And by the time I was 13, I could say I was an alcoholic. I had... Back then, we drank Miller Ponies and TJ Swan and all these Strawberry Hill, all that type of stuff. When I was 15, I know that, okay, so whenever you start drinking or doing drugs, that's where your developmental skills stop. Your maturity stops. And so I was walking around, didn't matter how old my body was, I had the immaturity of a 12-year-old. So I ended up hanging out with these folks. I started, every time something would go bad, I'd get drunk. It was automatic, my coping skill. That's what it was. At 1 week before, well, when I was 15, I was in a car accident with a friend. We went off Turner Diagonal. It went off an overpass and ended up down below on the highway. My back was fractured in 3 places, and my neck was fractured. And so they made me this atrocious metal body brace that I had to wear all day, every day. I could take it off to shower, and it corseted up, and it was horrific contraption. I wore that and a neck brace for the next year. I was stuck in that thing, and the doctors put me on Darvocet, Librium, and Valium, all 3 of those 3 times a day, and I'm still drinking every opportunity I could get. 1 week before my 16th birthday, somehow, even after starting drinking at 12, we didn't talk about sex at my house. We didn't talk about God. We didn't, you know, to be honest with you, we didn't talk. We lived under the same roof, but we were all siloed in our own little world. We didn't communicate. My mom was a hoarder, so it's not like we sat around the dining room table and talked about our day. We just didn't do that. Everybody was busy with life. And so somehow I had managed to hold on to my virginity. 1 week before my 16th birthday, I was at a party, getting high. I'm in my back brace, and a fellow at the party decides to rape me. And so that was my first intimate experience, was a rape in my back brace. And people didn't talk about rape back then. You didn't hear about it. And so automatically, I remember after he did that and he left me there, it's like a turtle turned over on its shell. I couldn't hardly even get up. And I remember finding him because I thought, now I guess we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean, nobody talked about it back then, so you just had to kind of, and I remember giving him my phone number and saying, call me. He never called me. He knew he just raped me. He wasn't going to call me. And it went from there. So I remember one time watching back in the day when they had Sunday night movies and the family would all watch together, this lady had been raped. and her whole world fell apart. She couldn't work, her family is falling apart, everything just went crazy. And by that time, after the rape, I started using even more. And I'd find myself blacked out, unconscious. Many bad things happened. Anyway, I remember that lady's life falling apart, and I thought, why didn't she just move on? Because that's what I did. That was my experience. We didn't talk about this. Let's just move on. And so that was ingrained in me from childhood, basically. So anyway, went from there. Well, you can watch a documentary on some of this. Some of this is a little, people might find a little offensive, but I ended up going through a lot. Things went farther and farther down the scale. I ended up to a place where my dad was a cop, and I ended up in abandoned trap houses. A trap house is somewhere that doesn't have flushing toilets, no running water, no electricity. It's just where people hang out, use drugs, and get drunk. We'd go every few days and get a 5-gallon bucket of water and put it down the toilet to force the waste to go down. I mean, basically living like animals. And, I kicked some guy that was trying to have his way with me, and he fell back into this mirror, and he got 400 stitches in his back and his butt. The ambulance came, the police came, everybody came. I was out. And they said, oh, that's Reed's daughter. I was embarrassed of my dad to death. I lost my job, and I lost my job so I didn't have money, but I still had a big need to drink. And so I went out with some guy, and he committed a burglary on a house. And I sat in the car, but guess what? My car was tagged in my name and Sergeant Bob Reed's name, in both of our names. So the next day, the detectives went to Division 2 to see if Officer Reed had been involved in a burglary. That got his attention. They sent me out to Atchison, Kansas, Valley Hope. I thought I did my recovery. I thought I worked all 12 steps while I was there. I fell in love, of course, with tall, dark, handsome crackhead. And, oh, good Lord, I got a problem with those. Anyway, I had a problem with those. Anyhow, so I went to treatment. I remember my dad come to visit, and he said, Sissy, I cleaned up your room, and there were 15 big whiskey bottles under your bed. He said, I was drunk so much that they didn't even know I was drunk. They just thought that was who I was. And so I managed when I got out of treatment. I fell in love, like I said, I thought I did. And I managed to go 2 years without using anything. They told me to go to meetings and do this, get a sponsor, all this stuff. So I got out, and I went, they told me to go to AA meetings. I went to 2. And back then, it was a bunch of old men in there with yellow fingers from smoking cigarettes and stained teeth from drinking coffee. I'm like, I don't belong here. Lord, I don't belong here. And they said stuff like, if you want what we have, no, I don't want what you have. What, scabies? They were old and wrinkled up. I thought, I do not belong here. So I managed 2 years without drinking or drugging, but the guy had returned to his use, the guy I'd met at the treatment center. And lots of bad things happened. He ended up breaking my leg on the waterbed frame, fighting over rent money. So here's my MO. My folks always supplied me with a place to come back and heal up. And then I'd heal up, and then I'd go out, get drunk, meet next Mr. Wonderful, stay with him till he'd try to kill me. Then I'd go back home to Mom and Dad's house, and it was a cycle. And they didn't really know about enabling. My dad was always on my side. Me and my mom would fight like cats and dogs, but I'd always go there. So I went back there and to Mom's house to heal up from the broken leg. And I remember thinking, man, I love him. I'm going to go back. As soon as I got off my crutches and could get up the steps to our apartment building, I went back. The day I walked in, there was him and a lady were in there smoking crack. And I thought, well, if you can't beat him, join him. I took a hit off the crack pipe, after 2 years of sobriety, and I immediately, that stuff made me so jittery, I went right down to the liquor store within 15 minutes and got my drug of choice, which of course was brown whiskey. I started drinking whiskey at 16 because they took me off all those painkillers, and I needed something harder than beer and wine. The next 8 years of my life spiraled out of control. I mean, you know, that's something we say in the Recovery Fellowship is it always gets worse, never better. And that's a fact. We go to levels, you find yourself in levels that you never think that you would be in. You think, oh, that won't happen to me. We all think we're unique and different. And the farther down the scale you go, it all becomes acceptable. You start thinking, oh, well, that's just how it is. And you accept that. And lots of bad stuff. Ended up, my boyfriend, from there, I tried to stay with him when we both were using, and he would beat me up, and he had one of those mothers that would say, girl, what did you do to him to make him do that to you? Pardon me? So one time he threw me down a bunch of steps, and I'm going to go show his mom what he did. I was all bloody, knees, hands. And I stopped at a gas station on the way, and I met next Mr. Wonderful gas station attendant dude that our courtship was as long as his shift was, okay? He had just been, he had just got out of incarceration for accidentally stabbing somebody 23 times and killing them, but it was an accident. So I lived with this guy in his mom's basement, and he tried to kill me multiple times. I mean, talk about a broken picker. I had no idea of what a healthy relationship was, anything. So this guy hooked me up with day labor, where you could work a day and then take a few days off, get drunk, and go back and forth. So I started doing day labor, and I mean, just one thing after another. I ended up trying to get out on a ticket for a day job, and my car was acting up, and I stopped at Golden Gate Liquor Store, and I met some guys there, and they said, hey, we're going to kick it today. Do you want to come with us? And I'm like, yeah. And so they messed up my car where it was not even drivable, and we went out to a house at 31st and Woodland, and it was painted like a daycare in there, little cartoon characters and stuff. And this guy, I had no idea, this guy was a pimp. I didn't even really know nothing about pimps. I didn't know their manipulation they used to force you into doing this stuff. So I was there, we were partying, he left for a few hours, he came back and he said, you slept with my partner. You owe me now, you're gonna get out and make me some money. I was petrified. There is nothing more soul robbing and demoralizing than getting in a car with strangers and doing stuff like that. You feel like an it. And I tell you what, at that point, there was no going back to my family. I was too embarrassed to call them. I knew I'm done. And I thought, I'm just going to do this until I die. And I'll be over here, so I won't, in Missouri, I won't embarrass my dad anymore. 8 years. I was out living like that. I get guns put in my mouth, multiple rapes. I needed a drink one morning so bad, the liquor store would not sell me alcohol anymore. I became a wet brain where I couldn't talk and communicate with people. When my pimp would beat me up so bad, I'd live under, you know, the boxes like on the back of semi-trucks. I'd live under one of those next to the liquor store. And a lot of bad things. I was just in and out of consciousness. But one day I needed a drink really bad, and I went down to the liquor store, and there were 4 guys sitting on a wall, and they had Mad Dog 2020, and they shared a drink with me, and boy, did I need it. I was shaking out of my skin. And let me tell you, from the time I was 13 and on, I wasn't drinking to party anymore. It had become essential in my life just to feel okay. And so they said, we're going to have a barbecue. Can you cook? I said, yeah, I'm a good cook. They wanted coleslaw and potato salad. And they said, we're going to take a shortcut over to the barbecue. And they took me down by the railroad tracks, and they decided that they were going to rape and kill me. Sorry, I usually don't get emotional. They cut the bottom of my feet open so I couldn't run, and they tore my clothes off. And one guy burned out immediately because he didn't want no part of it. And my shirt was gone, my jeans were gone, my feet were bloody. And they didn't kill me then, so they walked me through these neighborhoods to I-70 and 23rd Street, and there's some identical houses on the east side, and I was up in one of those houses for the next 2 days in an upstairs bedroom, locked in, being raped and beaten. And this is how sick I was with my addiction. The only thing I could think, why don't they just give me a drink so I'll be okay? That's where our addiction takes us. I thought, I can get through this as long as you give me a drink. So anyway, how I got to recovery, my dad was my hero my whole life. I never wanted him to know what I was really doing because I didn't want to embarrass him anymore. He retired from the police department, and after 37 years, and 9 months later, we had his 61st birthday. Thank you, baby. That's Jesse, you guys. He's awesome. He keeps me in line. Anyway, 9 months later, we had his 61st birthday party. The next day, my mom called. I became a binge drinker at this point because I had something called Crohn's disease, which is the deterioration of your bowel. And I was on, I think, 33 pills a day when I finally got to treatment. And of course, I had post-traumatic stress disorder, I had depression, I had anxiety, I had Crohn's disease. I was a walking basket case. And so anyway, the next day, my mom called and said, "Sissy, get over here, your dad's dead." I'm like, oh my God. So the first thing I did, this is my hero, my idol, that I had never been close to because he always worked. On the way, I bought a quart of whiskey, of course, because even though I'm just binge drinking because my health, I need whiskey to get through this. I get over there and your mom says to me, "Don't disgrace your dad's memory and get drunk because there's going to be a lot of police officers coming." So she called her doc and got 110 milligram Valiums for me so I would stay settled down and not drink and embarrass the family. So I stayed on these Valiums for a week. And at the end of the week, I ended up going back. But what I had decided, I was going to make Dad really proud of me and never drink again. And by the time I got back to my apartment, I was living with another alcoholic, had came off the streets. But by the time I got back, I didn't make it 24 hours without popping that quart of whiskey open and drinking it straight down. For the next 3 weeks, I never ate. There was no food in that house. I drank. Every time I was conscious, I drank and drank. I really thought I'd drink myself to death was my plan. And 1 month to the day of my dad dying, I ended up at a free detox downtown called, it was KCCC back then, it's called Heartland now. And a foreign guy that couldn't even speak English was my cab driver and got me down there. I don't remember making a call. I don't remember anything. I just remember being there, and he told me, "You're here, get out." And so I did. And it was like 18 bunk beds. It was downstairs, 18 bunk beds in one unventilated room where everybody's coming off the street, everybody's sick. Bad. And I went there in a red sweater, and it was the top. Day number 5, it became a sweater dress. I mean, honestly, I was so funky. Everybody in there was horrific. I mean, we were all in bad shape. There were no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no soap, nothing to get cleaned up with. And I got into the treatment, which was right next door, and they almost didn't accept me because all my medical issues and all the pills I was on. They ended up accepting me, and I did a treatment there. And I remember calling my mom and telling her I'm going to go to treatment. She said, "Sissy, you can't leave me right now. I need you." And I'm like, I feel like I got to do this because I really knew I was going to die. And I guess ultimately I didn't want to die. Somewhere inside me, there was still something that kept me going. And I know today it was God because he had a plan for my life. But I did the treatment. They They told me to go to AA meetings. This time I went to a bunch. They say 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 90 meetings in 30 days. I lived at that hall. My mom became re-diagnosed for the second time with ovarian cancer. And so I started taking care of my mom. She had got me a little house with Dad's inheritance. She had said, here, find a little house. You can live there with your sober friends, but get some roommates so you can afford it. So I did that. It wasn't expensive, but it was my little sober house, and I loved it. And anyway, I kept going to meetings. I'd go take care of her. My mom would call me out of my name and cuss at me a lot. She was pretty mean. And I would cry all the way back from Kansas, and I would go to an AA meeting, and then I'd go to my little house, and I'd clean it, and I'd cook dinner, and I'd go to bed, and I'd get up the next day, and I'd do it again. And I took care of my mom the last 3.5 years of her life, and I thought, this is the very minimum I can do for her putting up with my crap all these years. Now, I had another crackhead boyfriend that he was relapsing all the time. I'd kick him out when he'd relapse. Well, he had started going to this church, and he started, I didn't want to go to church. And so he said, I don't think we're going to be able to be together because we're not equally yoked. You don't go to church. I should have said, right, we're not equally yoked. You're a crackhead and I'm not. But instead, I got my little red mini dress on and whoop, whoop, thank God for grace and mercy. I went for all the wrong reasons. I'd go for the praise and worship part, then I was out and go to AA meeting, right? And so my mom passed away on December 30th of 1998. And I had to go out. So I had 2 other roommates. They were gone. I called the church people to come over and be with my live-in boyfriend. And I went out to get an urn for my mom's ashes on New Year's Eve. And I found an urn. When I returned home, the house was empty. My boyfriend was gone too. And I thought, we were having a New Year's Eve thing at the church. And I thought, no, he wouldn't leave me now with my mom just dying. Surely he wouldn't leave me now. And so I drove out to the church thinking maybe he's going to be at this New Year's Eve celebration. And when I walked in, he wasn't there. And I remember it really felt like my heart dropped down in my gut. And, always before when I had experienced pain, I always had something to anesthetize myself with to numb it. And this time I didn't have it. And I drove back to my house. All my roommates were gone. My boyfriend was gone. My mom was gone. My dad had died 3.5 years prior. And I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life, even when I was out in the streets. And that night, I cried out to the Lord. I said, please, don't let me go back to where I came from. Please start leading me, directing me, have your way with me. I don't want to go back, Lord. And I fell asleep praying and calling out to God. And I got to tell you, fear had covered my whole life. Fear of not being good enough, fear of inadequacy, fear of I don't look good enough, fear of everything. And when I woke up January 1st of 1999, the Holy Spirit had taken up residence in me, and the fear was erased. And that morning, I couldn't pinpoint what was going on, but I knew things were different. And I asked him to lead and direct my life, and boy, did he. I ended up kicking the boyfriend to the curb. My mom was a hoarder. It took me 3.5 years to clean her house out. She had magazines from the 50s in there, and she'd have birth certificates between a Woman's Day from 1960. So I had to go through I'm not joking you. It was Woman's Day, Family Circle, and one other one. It was crazy. So I got through all the house, I cleaned it all out, I fixed it all up. Now I'm driving to Kansas City, Missouri, and back out to 81st in parallel all the time because I'm sponsoring a lot of people in AA, and at the treatment center I'd carry the message. Oh, I forgot to say this. When I got out of treatment, at that time, I told you with my Crohn's disease and stuff, I would sell baked goods at a flea market, like banana nut bread, zucchini bread, cookies, fudge. And so when I got out of the treatment center, I kept baking stuff and taking it out to the flea market. And at these little flea markets, I could buy 10 little bars of hotel soap for $1. And I could get 10 little toothbrushes and toothpaste. And what I do is I buy hygiene products and I'd take them down to that detox and any leftover baked goods, and I'd share them with those people. Now, I was 34 years old. I never felt like I had an ounce of value. But when I started helping those people, first off, I did it because it made me feel better. But then it just became the next right thing to do. And the missing part of my soul was filled. I needed to help people. That was my way out, to help others. And all the voids and all the low self-esteem and lack of self-worth, I mean, I felt like I had purpose. Going to a detox, taking bars of soap. And you would have thought I was giving them $1 million. They were so happy to have those hygiene products. So I tell people sometimes a chocolate chip cookie saved my life. And I mean it. It did. And anyway, so I started carrying the message, sponsoring a lot of people. I started in carrying the message. I'd go to prisons, hospitals, detoxes, anywhere they'd let me speak. I'd go in there and I'd share my experience, strength, and hope with people. And what I found out, there were 900 women going through inpatient treatment here in our city with less than 30 beds for them to go to annually. 900 women, 30 beds. And the Lord started, I didn't even like women when I got sober. And the Lord started burdening my heart. You know, you need to do something. You need to help. You need to help. And I had just finished a house, my mom's house. It took me 3.5 years. And it's literally like God clapped me on the back and said, great job. Now sell it and move to the hood. And of course, I'm like, pardon me? This house was paid off. It was beautiful, just the way I wanted it. I thought I was going to live happily ever after. But God said, sell it and move to the hood. So that's exactly what I did. I found an old nursing home in historic Northeast, which was awful back then. Not 3 hours would pass without hearing gunshots. There were pimps, drug dealers, gang members, prostitutes, all up and down the street. I mean, it was insane down there. But I bought this old 23-room nursing home. And how are we on time? It's okay. Okay, I just don't want to run too far over. Anyway, so, and I'll tell you part of it. Every place, we have 14 houses now. Every place is a God story, every single one of them. So I had some stocks, and Edward Jones, and the stock market had crashed. I said, send me a check. I knew I wanted to help women, but I was down to $50,000. I'm like, okay. So I told him, cash, send me the check. It was coming in 7 business days. So I went, this nursing home, I couldn't connect with the real estate agent. I kept trying, the voicemail box was full, I couldn't connect. So I was looking at a house right around the corner from it. Guy wanted $149,000 for it. And once it's set up right to help women, I went out to my car after looking at it. I said, Lord, you know I'm impatient. When you want me to have something, can you please just drop it in my lap? No sooner I said that, I started my car, drove around the corner, and I'm on the side street of that old nursing home I had been eyeballing. God just kept taking me back there. And the real estate agent was walking up the stairs with some other folks. And I parked my car. I said, can I please come in and see? She said, I don't care if they don't care. I went in. It was dark wood paneling. It had the old chicken wire windows. Do you remember those with the chicken wire? They were broke in. The doors were kicked in. It reeked. It had been vacant 1.5 years, still reeked of urine and cigarette smoke. And boy, the Holy Spirit was like, yes, this is it. You know, only God could see that vision. And me, I can see beauty in things that a lot of people think bulldoze it, but I can see beauty in it. I can see what God can do. Just like He restores us, He has been using us for 20 years to restore our community and all these old beautiful houses. And so I went that very day. The doors didn't lock, so I went out to my house and I had a little gold frame picture of Jesus. And I snuck back in the house that day, and I put it in this closet in the middle of the house, and I asked the Lord to be the foundation and the center of everything that took place from that day forward. And I'm telling you, you can walk in that house and you feel the peace of the Lord just come upon you. I used to have neighbor kids that their family members were addicts, and they just want to come in the living room and just sit there. You know me, I'm trying to feed them. Are you hungry, baby? And they're like, nope, can I just sit here? Like, yeah. And so that was the first house. 2 months later, the dope man moved in right next door, brandished weapon, ran prostitutes, sold dope. He brought female gang members from Chicago that scared me out of my house. I had a lady in my driveway with a machete trying to pop our car tires. Every time she'd hit a tire with a machete, it'd pop off. Never penetrated, not one tire. I mean, it was insane. I claimed a hedge of protection around me and my family, the girls. And for a year and a half, we watched that. And I called the cops a few times. The cops would come, he'd go in the house, close the door, and not answer the door. And then they'd go away. And then things would escalate. So I called on a much better authority. I claimed the dope man's house in Jesus' name. So a year and a half in, dope man started using his own product, and the house became empty. And I'll tell you this, then I'll have to go faster. So this older couple, she was in Al-Anon, he was in AA, and they had been over the house for some kind of event, and they called me out of the blue, and they said, can you meet us Perkins for dinner tonight? We want to talk to you. I'm like, okay. So I get there, and she said, you know, we're not religious people. We don't go to church. We're not fanatics. She said, me and my husband have been married for 40 years. And these were old people. Me and my husband have been married for 40 years, and we haven't slept together for 25 years. I'm like, okay, you two are creeping me out. Where on earth is this leading? And so I'm just, ugh. And so, not happening. Anyway, so she said, my husband came to my room at 3 o'clock in the morning and told me that God had woke him up and told him to buy that house for you. Non-religious people. This man was woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and told. God said give, they loaned, that's okay. So the first house I got for the $50,000, but I had to sell the home out in my mom's home to make all the repairs. But then that house appraised for $194,000 when I got done. Lots of sweat equity. Then the dope man's house, we were able to get for $37,000, 18-room house. I had something called equity. So I used that equity, and I was able to pay those folks back and redo this house. And we were full. The women were just still coming. And I got to tell you, one place after I had women come in that were pregnant. We couldn't accommodate little babies because we used every inch of space, every inch. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to turn these women away when they're pregnant. And there was an abandoned apartment building a half a block, and I kept going over and looking in the windows to see if there's any progress. The neighbor said, lady, what do you want? And I said, I want this apartment building. So I found out who owned it, and I've went after people when I want their property. I kind of am, yeah, just go hard till they give in. So anyway, it was 14 one-bedroom apartments. And it had dirt floors. The old cement floors were totally broke apart. This place was a dump. Me and my buddy Gary put new floor drains in and poured the cement floors in the basement. And back then, people didn't donate to us. We were pretty early in being a non-for-profit. And so I'd go to thrift stores. And we started on the top floor, and we redo, because I'm a window treatment person, curtains and shears and all that. And I want people to live the way I want to live. God didn't make no junk. And he doesn't want us to give people our leftovers. He wants us to give people our best. So I'd redecorate one apartment at a time. The mamas would go to the hospital, have their baby, and then they'd come home to this fully furnished apartment to start their new life with their baby over. Then I had older ladies that said, you know what, I don't want to live around all these crazy young girls. I'd like an apartment. These are women that had already raised their families. They knew how to mother. So they started teaching the moms, and it became this, I tell you what, we live the way we're told to live in the Bible. We live our life together. We share what we have. We love on one another. I was just telling somebody out in the lobby that, you know, God told me that this would be a wide gate for people. I'm not supposed to shove religion down nobody's throat. That's not what I'm about. I'm supposed to show the love of Christ, and that will be such a blessing to people, something so authentic they've never experienced before. You know, I tell people, my first tattoo at 60 years old, it says, "Welcome home, baby." Because that's what I do with everybody that comes through our door. I give them a big hug. I don't care who they are, where they've been, how they smell, don't matter to me. Don't care what you did yesterday. Welcome home, baby. We're glad you're here. And we embrace them. And they're like, these people are nuts. How can you tell me you love me? Because I do. You don't even know me. Oh, yeah, I do. You're me. I know you. You're my sister, my brother in Christ. I know you. And so it has went, we have 14 homes now. And we have 30 apartments. And this is such a cool story. So we have a recovery community center that holds 350 people. In there on Friday nights, there's 300 people at a Bible study. Can you just think how much safer our streets are with 300 addicts that are not on the streets, right? And we have praise and worship. We have a speaker. We do something called Alpha, which is like beginner's Christianity. So we have a speaker, and then we break into small groups. Our small groups are 10 groups of 30 people each, so they're not too small anymore. We have to use both our buildings for this Bible study. It's just, so we got this recovery community center, and I have worked very hard with the state, because, you know, politics and faith do not marry well together. But the outcomes, so the kind of work I do, it's not regular treatment, it's called recovery support services. President Bush started a faith-based initiative years ago for people that are run social organizations and faith-based organizations. And I thought, this is right up my alley, because I can still talk about the Lord, I can still pray, I can still do what I want to do. But then that grant went away, and then it came to another grant and another, and it finally got to state level. But the outcomes that we were producing were unheard of. Secular had nothing in comparison. I mean, you're talking a 6 months follow-up, 98% of the people had no contact with the law. 86% were socially connected. These outcomes were crazy. So I started going and saying, we're losing our funding, but I want you to see what we've been doing, right? And getting in the senators' faces. And I've been kicked off the House floor more times than I'd like to say. Those little pages, you know, they're like retired little, they shrunk, they're little, used to be senators, and get out of here. Then he finally just got to where he'd say, just let me go on in there. It's not lobbying, it's passionately sharing. You can't lobby as a non-for-profit. Anyway, so we got a line item under the Department of Mental Health, which is unheard of. 3 years ago, we got it. And now there's billions of dollars that go into the budget of Department of Mental Health. Faith and social organizations get less. For all the organizations in the state, we get less than 3% of that funding. But you know what? It's something. It's something we can build on, because we've got donors, we can get grants. I mean, we just seek out from everybody. But this recovery community center, so it's a grant from Department of Mental Health, and we get X amount of dollars every month, okay? So with mine, now there's recovery centers all over the state. Some of them have 2 employees. 10 employees I put in place under the same amount of money that all the other ones are getting. I got 10 employees. employment specialists, certified peer specialists. We have 50 employees, 46 have came through our program, and now they work there. 48 of the 50 are in recovery, right? So we have daily groups from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30. We take a dinner break. We have a chef. We have a dinner break. And we all pray together and eat dinner. Then we have a meeting every night. And so it is packed. So what I figured out is that, you know, when you're trying to get sober, people tell you, well, you have to go here and do this. You have to go there and do this and go here. You're already overwhelmed just trying to not drink today. And so God just kept putting on my heart, what's next? What's next? What do these people need? What is the need? See the need. And so it has just grown from there. The only thing that we don't provide right now is health and dental. So they come in, we do an evaluation on them. If they need mental health care, we're going to take them to the mental health place. We're going to make sure they get the medical cards instead of using the emergency room as a way to get prescription refills. We're going to walk with you so you can get a doctor set up that you go to visit, right? Preventative stuff. We're going to make sure you get the mental health needs. We walk literally. When I tell them we wrap our arms around it, we wrap our arms around it and hold them up till they can stand on their own. And I'm not kidding. And there is no other agency that does the things we do. Not the treatment centers, not nobody is doing what we're doing. We have daily groups, we just wrote a poetry book. The people in there, some of it's a little dark, but it's okay. That's where they're at. We have art therapy. They do improv classes. These kids are out there laughing and hooting and hollering, doing improv. We go out and clean up our community. I mean, it's this big, huge family. Everybody calls me mom. You don't have to. That's not a requirement. You know, you haven't lived till we have family game night, right? You haven't lived till you see a 6'5" tatted up dude stomp his foot because he didn't win at bingo. I'm like, honey, it's a game of chance, okay? I've had him come in and say, I'm not calling you mom, you're not mom. Honey, you don't have to. Within 2 weeks, they're calling me mom. Because it's just, that's what they feel from me. I've never had any kids myself, but I have over 10,000. We've served over 10,000 people. We're coming up on 20 years, we've served 10,000 folks. And they're my kids, and they're remarkable. So last year, you guys might want to come to this. We have a baptism every year. We have a big pool. It's 16 by 32 at the original house. And I went to the Holy Land a few years ago, and my water bottle, I was being baptized in the Jordan River, recommitted, and my water bottle accidentally fell in the Jordan River. And then it accidentally fell in my suitcase. And then, darn the luck. I thank God forgives me for smuggling water from the Jordan River. There's a priest back there. Sorry. Sorry. Please forgive me. Anyway, so every year I take some of this Jordan River water and I put it in the pool. And I tell them, you're being baptized in the same water that Jesus was baptized in. Whole families are coming and giving their life to Christ. Last year, I don't really care about numbers, but 130 people gave their life to Christ in our swimming pool. You know, a couple years ago, I went to helping with the baptism, and I was putting my face on the edge of the pool and just watching what was taking place, and God brought back to my memory what that place used to be, and that He's using that same place to just, I mean, unbelievable. And the Holy Spirit is so strong, it's just undeniable. I mean, my life, all that crap I went through means nothing to me, because that stuff made me who I am today and became willing to say yes and believe when He tells me to do something, just to take the step out there. My board of directors says, you're crazy, we don't have any money. I said, but my daddy does. And he said it's going to happen, so I'm going to step out in faith. This has been a faith walk the whole time. I barely got a GED because I had my broken back, right? I don't have an education. I don't know how to remodel houses. I do now. I don't know how to raise money. I don't know how to do all this stuff. But what he ordains, he maintains, right? And it's all been him. So this is what I'm going to tell you about the Recovery Community Center. So we have a smoking patio off the back. We redid this. It was an old bowling alley, then a chop shop, a firehouse. She's had many lives, but now she's our Recovery Community Center. We did a capital campaign, remodeled the whole inside, but there's a smoking patio off the back. And so there's our smoking patio here. We have a big fence, and then there's a strip mall right on the other side. And there's a tattoo shop in the strip mall. And the back of the strip mall butts up to our fence with the smoking patio. Well, the people from the tattoo shop were out there just getting high all the time. I mean, so much weed floating over the fence. I went over, I said, please, can you quit smoking weed out here? You know, we're trying to remain clean and sober on the other side of the fence. And the guy's not a pleasant guy. He said, whatever, lady, move around. I'm like, okay. So this is God. God gives us these little things where it's kind of a touche for God moment. So, not 2 weeks later, I get a call, and it's a guy from New York. And he said, I know you don't know me. My name's so-and-so. I hear you're doing great things down there. I have a building right kind of in the middle of your properties, and I'm curious if you'd like to purchase it, and I'll finance. Well, nonprofit, you'll finance, ding, 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 ding. It was a strip mall. Not 2 weeks later, I thought, you know what, this is too good to pass up, just to get even. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Anyway, so my board said yes. So he was the first lease that I redid. And it said, no illegal drug use on or about the property, or you will be evicted immediately. And I just had the pleasure, he happened to be sitting there when I walked in. And this is when you wish you had a head camera thing. And I went in and I said, honey, I'm your new landlord. Just that right there was priceless. And I said, here's your new lease. No illegal drug use on or about the property. You will be immediately evicted. And by this time, his mouth's hanging open. And this was the great part. And I guess I shouldn't be like this. I said, but if you don't want to, of course, you can move around. That's the touche for God, right? I didn't want a strip mall, but there's 4 family apartments upstairs that I can have women. We have a pregnant women's home and a new mother's home. And then once they get on their feet, we try to get them to one of our apartments. Right now we have 30 apartments. And so anyway, we got the strip mall. So I thought, okay, what can we do here? Well, we can train our people to have careers and jobs. We can use the apartments upstairs. We can put businesses in here that will bring our community together, let us get to know one another, right? If I know my neighbor, I'm going to be watching out for him. If I don't know him, you might turn a blind eye. And so what we've done, we have an outreach center for everybody in our community. You can drop in there any time of day. There's all kinds of meetings in there, NA, AA, sexual compulsion meetings, Spanish-speaking meetings, anything that our community needs, and that's open to the public. And then right next door, we put in a full-service beauty salon and spa in the hood, let me tell you. You walk in and you think you've been transcended to the plaza. It's laid out, man. It is so nice. And so the women in prison in Vandalia get their cosmetology degree while they're incarcerated. Nobody's going to hire anybody that got their degree in prison, right? So God said, break down barriers, sister, break down the barriers. So now they can come live with us. They'll have stable housing. They'll be able to start their own little booth there and build up their clientele and then be able to move on from there. So we have a suntan bed, which is controversial, I know. But then we have an esthetician with the machines, eyelashes, massage. We have 2 styling chairs, 4 manicure tables, 2 pedicure chairs. Right next door to it, we're putting in a coffee shop and a cafe. See, I'm still thinking community. How can we bring people together? So we opened up a free gym for our community a year ago. We have over 600 members that come to our gym. We have a personal trainer in there. This is all bringing community. We're getting to know one another. So we're working on the coffee shop right now, and I'm insisting that it's not just a coffee shop. I love cafes. I love that atmosphere. But we're putting in, have you guys been to Hawaii? They have this shaved ice stuff, and then they put vanilla ice cream in it, and then more shaved ice and syrup. Oh, we're going to have that just because I want it. And you can't get it anywhere but Hawaii, and I can't just jump over there and pick one up. So we're going to have that. And then I'm claiming the tattoo shop is still on my hit list, and I'm claiming that within the next 2 years is going to be a free medical and dental clinic for our community. And I know it's going to happen. God's put on my heart it's going to happen. And I've met enough retired doctors and dentists that people want to be part of something good. We all do. We have that desire. But you know what? We're so busy doing ministry work, we don't get opportunities to get out and share what we're doing to bring more people in. I mean, we operate a lot on volunteers. I mean, we have to. There's so much going on. And so I've talked to a lot of retired doctors and dentists that said, I'd love to be part of this and come down and donate a day a week, something. So I know that's going to happen. And then we got a little convenience store next to that. And then I think we're going to open, I was trying to put a laundromat in one building that we're doing a lot of structural work. I was going to put a laundromat in, but it's $250,000 to even do it, buy the equipment. And it's like, Wade, I could only employ a couple people here, and I don't know if we'd even be able to cover our expenses. So we get donations. So we're going to do a thrift store there, which a lot of other non-for-profits do thrift stores. But I want it to be a nice thrift store, not a stinky one. I want people to walk in there and think, oh, this is nice. It smells good in here. And so that, I mean, in the winter, we turn away an average of 100 people a week, every week. There's not enough housing. And it's not that there's not other options. A lot of people want to come to us. There's not a lot of truly faith-based homes where Bible studies and reading your word and church and all the things we do are not really incorporated in. So it's 12-step based on the recovery steps along with faith. That's the only way I got it. And I believe it could work like an idiot for me. It can help anybody. You know, really, I was more broken than anybody I've ever met. And I tell them that, honey, if I could get this, please believe you can too. Because I was totally gone, bankrupt. And we share that love. I think love is what we have above every other organization. And if somebody truly loves you, you can tell a difference. You can tell if somebody's sitting there crying, I don't walk by them. By golly, I stop and say, honey, do you need to talk? What's going on? And we don't make time for people, do we? Because we're so busy. But I quit wearing a watch. I know people don't wear watches much anymore. But years ago, they did wear watches before cell phones became so popular. When I started the ministry, I quit wearing my watch because I figured out I'm no longer on my time. I'm on God's time. And if one of God's children need me right now, that's going to the side because this is my job. This is my purpose. This is the reason God saved me, is to do this work. And it's the most important thing in the world to me. I don't date. I haven't been on a date in 20 years, right? I don't really miss it. I don't want to clean up after anybody, or if I don't want to cook a meal, I don't have to. I am totally content. I have the best relationship I've ever had, and that's with the Lord. And, you know, Paul says it, if you can go without being married or significant other, then you'll just serve the Lord more fully. So I do that. I want to tell you, I lived with the girls for 12 years in the main house. Now, I want to give you an example of my life for 12 years. I'd be in the bathtub taking a bath. One of the girls would come in the bathroom, sit on the toilet, and start talking at me. And I'd say, honey, I'm taking a bath. You know what they'd say? Oh, you're not bothering me. Living there with the girls, 14 to 16 women, it enhanced my prayer life. Because two things for good recovery housing is you have to have a coffee pot close to your bed before you have to go downstairs, and prayer. Because when I go down those steps, people are very needy when they are early in recovery. They're unsure of everything, and they want to fix everything today. And so I go down the stairs, and it would be like mama bird, baby birds are all like, wah, wah, wah. And so I'd have to drink coffee and pray before I went downstairs. I'm still on a 4-hour sleep schedule to this day, because that's all the sleep I could get in that house. Mom, all night, all day, all the time. And I know, I call it God juice, because I'm excited every day that I get to wake up and serve the Lord. It's my fuel. And I am the most blessed woman. I get to live around miracles. Not many of us get to see miracles every day. I get to live miracles every day. And when people come in, have you ever met anybody that there's just nothing behind the eyes? It's just like blank, and they're lost. And we get to see people that, we have a clothing pantry, we have hygiene products, we start building them up from the very time they get there. And within a week, you see this little spark. A couple weeks, they look like a different person. They've been eating, they got clean clothes on. They're starting to get self-esteem and self-worth back. And you get to see this person totally transformed. We've had family members come to Christ because they knew if their child got better here, that they wanted some of that too, because they knew that it was a complete miracle for their son or daughter to get in recovery and be transformed like what had happened. I am so blessed. And you guys are always welcome. If you want to come down for a tour or something, please feel free to. You've got to go on a tour, I believe, with Michael.
I did go on a tour, and until you see it, you can't even imagine.
Oh, I got to tell you, there's no gang members, no pimps, no prostitutes, no drug dealers up and down our street. They're gone. Gone. We might hear gunfire once a week, once every 2 weeks. The whole community has been transformed, and we've taken 14 abandoned or drug houses. We've got them cheap, and I've worked myself out of business, quite frankly, now, because you can't get cheap houses down there anymore. But I guess that's a good problem to have. But in cleaning up these individual homes that were just sucking our community and a lot of crime and stuff involved, redoing those houses have just restored our community. And now we're working, did you guys hear about the little girl that got shot and killed down at First Friday, about Aaron Langhofer, about 3 years ago? Tom is a dear friend of ours, and so was Aaron. Matter of fact, Tom was doing a Bible study that Friday night. He had just left our place when he got the call. And she was a caseworker out at, Rosebrook. And so we've had an abandoned home behind our apartment building this slumlord had. We were finally able to get that from the guy. And that house is going to be called Aaron's house. And it's going to be 6 bedrooms. We don't take women that have their children with them unless they're little babies, right? So this house will be where mamas can come in with their child. We're going to have trauma counseling for the children, because if they've lived with us in our addiction, they need help, because they've seen some things those little eyes should have never seen. They've heard things they never should have heard. So there's going to be, we have parenting classes, we have domestic violence class. I'm just telling you, our programming is off the chart. Golly, We should have brought something, a little video or something. I can talk about it, though. It's just so exciting, and if you want to come down, I guarantee you, you're going to be touched by the Holy Spirit.
So who should we call to arrange for?
Jesse, he has cards. I've got a documentary out about my life, and it's called Bobbi Jo Under the Influence. It's on Amazon Prime. Of course, we've been talking to Carrie Sullivan and the guy that did God's Not Dead. And I said, you know, if you do a movie, of course, I want Angelina Jolie to play me. That's the same response I got from my staff. They said, you know who they said? Kathy Bates. She's a little too frumpy for me. I want somebody cool. Anyway, so we'll see where that goes. The book I wrote is 7 years old. Tons of things have changed in 7 years. The documentary's a year and a half old. Tons have, I mean, our God is a living God, and He's not telling us to stop or it's good enough. There's still people out there suffering every day, and by golly, they need a touch from Him, and they need to feel loved. Because that's the one thing when I was out in those streets. I remember there was an old man living under a bridge, and he had a mattress, and he had a chair and a lantern, and I used to think, I was envious of him, and I thought if I could just have those things, I'd be okay. And I was walking out of the apartment building after I'd finished an apartment for one of our ladies and her baby, and God said, you don't need a mattress on the ground. I've gave you many mattresses. Look what. And we take our blessings and we bless others. That's why God blesses us, to help others. And so I'm going to shut up. God bless you guys. Thank you for letting me come. Get a card from Jesse. Check out the documentary. Any questions? So it's been over 10,000 people that we've helped.
The documentary's great.
Is there a way to set up a group tour if we wanted to take people from the church to come?
Yeah, just call Jesse, and we'll do a tour group. Yeah.
I'll set it up.
I think you guys will really enjoy it, and you'll just see the glory of God all over the place. Yeah. Yes. So, yes. So most of our people, and that's another thing we have at the Recovery Community Center, a lot of our people, DFS has got involved, say they don't have the child in their custody, but they can have visits with them, supervised visits, like 2-3 hour visits a week. So we have a family reunification room at our Recovery Community Center where the families can be there, and then once they start getting to a more advanced house, they can have an overnight, and then we try to get those folks in the apartments as soon as possible so they can get their child back. In 2020, we had 9 babies born drug-free at Healing House. 9 babies. Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
So do you take in men who didn't ask?
Oh, yeah, I do. That was one of the hardest things that ever happened. I was cool with the women. Now, don't hate me, men. But you know when y'all get sick, you turn into kind of king baby, and you think you're going to die because you got the sniffles. When the men came, it was a whole different thing. I mean, I thought, wow, these women are easy compared to the men. Yes, somebody gave me a house, and that's a whole nother story. Anyway, this guy gave me a house. The guy that we buy ugly houses gave me a house, and there were so many drunk men outside right around that house that I thought, I can't put women in there. I knew it had to be a men's home, and that's when we started. And so now it's about even women and men's homes. But the men were a lot more challenging to me than the women, honestly. But now it's all leveled out. Yeah, but, yeah, they're good. You know what? I started this one house I had 40 men in it, right? And I was running the place by myself. I didn't have anybody. A ministry had it before, but they were awful, and the men were left there in rank conditions. So I'm running it, and they're like, aren't you scared to be in that house with all those guys coming off the street or back from prison? Aren't you scared? And I'm like, no. those boys love me. I'm like their sober mom. They won't let anything happen to me. Even when I was doing meds, there'd be one or two standing right outside the office door making sure nobody messed with me. I mean, they love me. They're not going to let anybody mess with me. I've never felt scared down there. Never felt scared. Okay, I know we got to close. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious if there are any people who felt hurt by the church who, through your ministry,
Lots of times.
reconnected.
Lots.
Yeah.
Lots. And that comes from all different faiths. But there's been some awful experiences people have had, and they're apprehensive about coming to a place that's called faith-based. And we keep that term pretty broad, faith-based. But I do want people to know that's what we're built on too. But yeah, and you know what? They come, the love we show them, they come to know Christ. And they're like, this is not what I remember. I remember this condemning God that was angry, and every one of us think we're not good enough for God to love us when we get there. I think I've been a prostitute, I've been a liar, I've been all these things. God don't want nothing to do with somebody like me. Well, guess what? That's why Jesus came, somebody like me and somebody like them. So there's redemption. And when they finally grab onto that they can be forgiven, because it's hard for us to forgive ourselves, when they figure out the love of Christ, and that's why he came for, to wash us clean, that's a miraculous point when they really believe that with all their heart. Okay, I'm going to really shut up now, okay? Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, gosh. That's not necessary. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to try to work on my energy level. You can tell I'm a little spaz all the time. Jesse has to put up with me. So, Jesse, you got cards in case they want to come for a tour?
Yep.
Good.
We'll set up a group tour too. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Can I get some more coffee?
Can I give you a hug?
Oh, absolutely. Let me get this
You
off my
are
ear.
such a beautiful person. And I'm so glad God
Ideally, I would say no more than
I
led
do.
you